want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Tom Fennell, who is, of course, where's Tom?
I'm in the flesh, but I'm in the flesh at home rather than in the studio.
Tom is in his pajamas. He's been very lazy of late, so but he's still in the flesh, and we're about to do the 486th edition of Energy Week, which comes from my blog, geoharvey.com. And if you want to see the original articles that we're going to be talking about, today being the 25th of August, we're going to start a week ago on the 18th, Thursday. And if you want to see the original articles, you can go to my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, or you can go down that way, down on the scroll down, and on the screen you're going to find a link to a website where you can see Energy Week number 486, or you can get Energy Week 486 as a download of the file that Tom and I use for the script, I call it. So,
well, we'll mention the source as we go.
Yes.
But we're not going to get involved directly with the source.
Yeah.
On the show. But some of these things are very comprehensive. They're well worth looking at.
Yeah, they actually are very much worth looking at.
Some of them are very lengthy.
Yes, they are.
Some of them aren't.
Yep, we're going to start off with an article on the Colorado River. I'm going to put up a picture of the Colorado River.
A picture of the Colorado River.
Yeah, I'll put that.
By the way,
now.
the Colorado River is quite the river. I mean, it meanders all over the west.
It's amazing.
Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
And it ends in Mexico.
There you go. If you can picture Yellowstone Park to Mexico,
and it doesn't make a direct hit. It meanders all over the west.
All over the west. Yeah. So we've got this picture of the Colorado River, which, by the way, is a couple of years old, and it shows the river in what was a low state. You don't notice it from the picture. This comes from CNN.
Well, it's still in a low state.
It's in a lower state now. Yeah, it's in bad shape. So you have a title, Tom?
I certainly do, and I quote, "As the Colorado River crisis grows, some officials say it's time for the feds to make a move on water cuts."
Right. The Colorado River system is spiraling toward its demise. That doesn't sound good. Stakeholder states failed to make an August 15th deadline to devise a plan to reduce water usage themselves. Now, the United States government says it's stepping in to produce mandatory cuts.
Well, it supposedly empties into Baja, Mexico.
Yeah.
And of late, that hasn't been 100% of the time accurate. It's been dry.
It's been dry down there. And as a matter of fact, this is something that's been going on for a very long time.
Well, this is an international concern because the Mexicans are saying you're stealing our water.
They've been saying that for decades. I can remember my father telling me when I was about 6 years old, that would have been about 1952, that 70 years ago, that the Mexicans were really upset because they didn't get all the water they were accustomed to getting out of the Colorado River. So this is an ongoing issue.
And a lot of the Colorado River, at least the southern end of it, is used for irrigation.
Yes.
We wouldn't have vegetables if it wasn't for the Colorado
Well,
River.
we'd have vegetables, but they wouldn't be coming from that part of the world. And I think
the Imperial Valley.
The Imperial Valley, yeah. Without the Imperial Valley, we would have a lot of people who would be, we'd have more people having their own gardens. That's one way to put it.
Well, that would be an improvement.
Yeah, it probably would be. So should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we got a funny-looking picture of some beeves.
I used that word on purpose. Beeves. Let me put up a picture of beeves. There are beeves. That's a real word, by the way.
I would imagine it is.
It is the plural of beef.
Beef, yeah.
But the only place I've ever seen the word used is when it applies to multiple cattle.
Uh-huh.
And so I saw multiple cattle. I decided I'd put it in just for fun.
Well, this is a kind of a grim headline.
Yes, it is.
American farmers are killing their own crops and selling cows because of extreme drought.
Yeah.
This is scary.
It is a bit, yes. Of the farmers in the United States, 37%, and that is a scary figure. I
was just going to say, that's a significant number.
That's more than a third, have said they are plowing through and killing existing crops that won't reach maturity because of dry conditions. In Texas, the drought is forcing farmers to sell off their cattle and reduce the state's herds by 50%. And what's happened in the past when this kind of thing has happened is that, excuse me,
food prices are going to go up.
Well, the price of beef will go down, but it won't stay down. It'll suddenly go up after that. Well, the reason why it goes down is because all of a sudden we've got a surplus of beef.
Okay, they're selling the cows.
They're selling the cows, so they'll get slaughtered, and
when they go, whoops, it's going back up again.
Exactly, Tom. That's exactly what happens, and it is not good. So there you have it.
Let's move along here. We got a picture of some funny-looking things.
Oh yes, funny-looking things. The man who took this picture is a guy named Jason Blackeye, and I would think from the name that he was American Indian. I don't know. But one thing I can tell you.
I've seen reference to him, and you are correct.
But he takes a lot of pictures of wind turbines.
Uh-huh.
He seems to like wind turbines. Let me put that picture back up so people can see it.
In a way, they're picturesque.
They're certainly picturesque. What do you have? This is from CNN. What do you have for a title?
It comes from Grid News.
I'm sorry, it comes from Grid News. That's right.
China is beating the U.S. in clean energy. Duh. Can America catch up?
Right. Despite its continued connection with coal, China has emerged in the last decade as a global clean energy champion. It is outperforming the United States by a wide margin in almost every area of clean technology, from overall investment to manufacture to marketing across the world. And this is something, I got to tell you, it's a gift of our political system and the fact that we've got politicians who have been wanting to prevent clean energy from being developed in the United States. And the result of that is...
As we have spoken about it, will again.
It is so frustrating to see that there's a market worth scores of billions of dollars for electric buses, and over 95% of them are made in China because they were given no hope of being developed in the United States. And the same thing is true of wind turbines, and more especially solar panels. I mean, this is...
it's all about money, and it's about big business.
Yeah, and the big businesses that wanted to make money selling fossil fuels in the United States prevailed in the United States. And the result of that is that we have given China a gift that I want to say I think is worth probably well over $1 trillion.
You're probably right.
Yeah. So should we go on, Tom?
Can't dance.
We have a picture of the Sea of Galilee. And
That's what they say it is.
Those are not people walking on water.
That's been done.
It's been done. Okay, this is from CNN. And this is Go ahead.
This is from CNN.
Yeah.
And it says, lakes are drying up everywhere. Israel will pump water from the Mediterranean.
This is kind of a crazy story, but it has a certain It's a story we should pay attention to. Israel used to get nearly all of its drinking water from the Sea of Galilee, which is an inland body of water, and it's fresh water. And by the way, it feeds the Jordan River. Now plants...
It's part of the Jordan River, isn't it?
It's the headwater of the Jordan River, I believe. Now plants desalinating Mediterranean water to provide... Now plants desalinating Mediterranean water provide nearly all of the drinking water in Israel. And because the Sea of Galilee is running low, even though they're not drawing the drinking water out of it, Israel is planning to pump desalinated water into it.
So they're recharging the Sea of Galilee.
They are, and there have been proposals to do similar things in California.
Well, one of the things that the article does not mention is the fact that ever since they founded the state of Israel, it has been growing rapidly.
Well, it's yes, I think that's.
I mean, for one thing, it's supposedly a refuge for the Jews from around the world.
All over the world.
Many of them are moving into Israel.
And
so the population of Israel has grown enormously.
Yes, and of late, I've noticed that there was a story, might have been CNN, might have been BBC, about thousands of Jewish people leaving Russia because of the war in the Ukraine and going to Israel.
I saw that.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got a picture coming up of a storm.
Right, you are.
Looks like a kind of a nasty storm.
Looks like a nasty storm. You know, a lot of times I can't use the pictures that come with the articles because they're copyrighted and people copy my blog to their blog, and I don't want them to be taking copyrighted material. So I go out and I look. And in the case of almost everything from BBC and CNN, I have to find things. And this was just a picture that I found. But
this came from the BBC.
No, this did not come from the BBC. This came from a free download place called Unsplash.
Oh, okay. The article came from the BBC.
The article came from the BBC. So what do you have for a title?
Children are among the dead reported from storms in France, Austria, and Italy.
Yeah, this is kind of sad. Powerful storms with heavy rain and wind have battered areas of Central and Southern Europe, killing at least 12 people, including 3 children. And this particular sentence really amazed me. In Corsica, winds gusting up to 140 miles per hour, uprooted trees and damaged mobile homes. Damaged?
That's pretty scary, 140 mile an hour wind.
Well, you know, those are gusts that you would associate with a bad hurricane. I don't know that there was a hurricane in the Mediterranean. There are very rarely hurricanes in the Mediterranean, but that was what happened. And this is an interesting thing, and we're going to talk about this later. That area of Southern Europe has been exposed to severe heat and drought, and now, naturally enough, they get pelted with rain that's so heavy and storms that are so heavy that they have flooding and all kinds of problems.
Doesn't just rain, it pours.
That's right, and the winds are just amazing. And this seems to be, this week, I saw for the first time a term, and I should have seen this a long time ago. I'm sure it's been around for a long time. Maybe I just took note of it for the first time, but it's called climate whiplash, which means you're going from drought to flooding. And that's, you know.
Yes, I remember seeing that word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we got a picture of an offshore wind turbine, of all things.
And here I thought this was a picture of a sailboat.
Well, there is a sailboat in the picture.
Okay. All right, this is from Clean Technica.
Virginia, offshore wind project could power 600,000 homes and create over 1,000 jobs.
Virginia recently announced 2,600 megawatt offshore wind power project. This is 2.6.
That's going to be a pretty good-sized project.
A good size, 2.6 gigawatts.
Well, gigawatts is megawatts, baby.
I knew you were going to say that, but it happens to be true, and it doesn't hurt to repeat it. When is adequate wind, the new offshore wind farm will generate enough power for at least 600,000 homes in Virginia. The project will also create a large number of jobs. You know,
they always say that.
Yeah, well, they do. A wind project, offshore wind project of that size, I would bet that it would be generating electricity very close to 100% of the time. It's just going to be a variable amount of electricity.
Well, they use the phrase adequate wind there, what you're saying is there's going to be adequate wind most of the time.
Well, I've seen statistics that say that wind farms generate, on the wind farms that we've had in this country have generated electricity 98% of the time. And that means that they could be giving 100% of their capacity or 5% of their capacity or something. But they're almost always there are turbines that are turning, and a project of this size is going to cover a lot of ocean. And there's going to be, even in a relatively still weather, there's going to be wind turbines turning. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Can't dance.
Okay, we have a picture. We're up to Saturday, August 20th, by the way.
Those things look like solar panels.
They look like solar panels from above. Let me put it up so people can see it. This is also from Clean Technica.
Excuse me.
You are excused.
Well, I'll read the title.
Okay.
Polysilicon. Excuse me, I got to sneeze.
Well, yeah, it's...
Polysilicon gut. What? Polysilicon what?
Yes.
And cheaper solar panels, question mark.
According to Rethink Energy's UK lead analyst, Andreas Vontanar, I'm going to say that's probably pronounced, prices for polysilicon and hence solar modules will continue to rise during 2022 as supply continues to run short of demand. However, the supply will leap ahead again after that as new factories go online and prices will drop. So,
polysilicon is a high purity form of silicon.
Yes.
And it's a key raw material for solar modules.
Yes. And it happens that solar modules and things like computer chips, they're all based on very similar chemistry. People say you make it out of sand, and that's not really quite true.
That's sort of
simplifying things.
Oversimplifying it.
Okay, oversimplifying. Yeah. So anyway, there we go.
Let's move on. We got an up-to-date version of the microbus.
Look at this. Okay, and let me put that up so people can get a better look at it.
Picture comes from Clean Technica.
Yeah, the article does.
The article does.
Yeah, I don't have a source for this Volkswagen ID Buzz. I'm pretty sure it's from Volkswagen. There wasn't any.
I would say it's from Volkswagen.
Yeah,
themselves.
You have to be.
This particular vehicle isn't in production yet. They've been playing with it for years, and they say it's going to come out, and then it doesn't come out.
Yeah, well, that's the way life is.
I think it will come out, but it's going to be electric when it comes.
Yes, and that's, what do you have for a title?
Volkswagen ID Buzz, that's the name of the vehicle.
Yes.
Sales surge. Norway will be all EV by 2024. That's coming up pretty quick.
It is, absolutely it is. Volkswagen's ID Buzz is sold out for 2022 in Germany and Norway, even though deliveries won't begin until later this year. Well, there's not much left of this year, so it isn't going to be a long time. Harald A. Müller, the importer of VWs into Norway, announced that it will not import VW cars with internal combustion engines. And I want to point out, this is not just ID Buzz. They are not going to...
This is Norway itself, and it's all VW cars.
All VW cars, regardless of their model. If they have internal combustion engines, they are not going to Norway.
Out of Norway.
Yeah, after January 1st, 2024. So January...
Coming right up.
Yeah, we're talking about 15 months, 16 months from now.
Yeah.
And no more. So that's pretty soon.
Well, it's the way of the future, man.
It's the wave of the future, that's right. Should we move on, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. We got a picture of what are these things?
Solar panels. Yeah, and
it comes from ABC, or at least the article does. And ABC in this case doesn't mean American Broadcasting Company, it means Australian Broadcasting Company.
I happen to believe that you are correct. What do you have for a title?
Solar briefly overtakes coal in Australia. It's the number one source of power nationally.
Can you imagine this? I mean, Australia is so heavily into coal.
Well, it's a political thing.
They're using coal because of politics, but the solar power is really driving it out of the market. For about half an hour on August 19th, Australia's energy market got a look at the future powered by renewables. Solar eclipsed coal as the lead source of power across the energy market, which includes all of Australia except Western Australia and the Northern Territory. You know, all of us...
Nobody living in either one of those states.
Well, but, you know, saying all of Australia except, and then you name...
two largest ones.
It's kind of like saying all of the United States except of what's west of the Mississippi River. But you're right. Well, you said nobody lives there. There's the eastern part, which is included in this, has the overwhelming majority of the population, and that.
And they all live within about 50 miles of the coast.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it.
Central Australia, there's 7 people living there the last count.
Oh no, there's Alice Springs is, I'm told, a very nice place to live. In fact,
it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Australia.
There is a book about it called A Town Like Alice. That I happen to like very much. I'm not good with names, so I don't remember the name of the guy who wrote it. He was the same person who wrote On the Beach and a number of other books that I am very fond of. So, but...
Well, let's move along.
Okay, we're up to Sunday, August 21.
Sunday. Yep, Sunday the 21st.
And we have a picture
that I don't quite understand, but it's a building. Looks like they're hit by an airplane.
It is a building that got hit by a rocket. It is a building in the Ukraine.
And it's called a casualty of the war.
Well, that's what I called it. As a building, it is a casualty of the war.
Well, the article comes from USA Today.
Yes, it does.
And the article says Zelensky, by the way, there's 2 Y's on his name, so it's really Zelensky.
Well, I think you're right. This article has 2 Y's, doesn't it? I see. Well, you know, these...
I've seen that spelled elsewhere. He does use 2 Y's.
Yeah, and the spellings from the Ukraine are all over the map. Because
they use a different alphabet than we do.
They sure do.
Transliterate, and it comes out kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, when Zelensky and Putin signal support for international inspection of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Yeah, both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, I'm just gonna pronounce it the way I always do, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. That's the way I could hear it on the news things that I see.
Well, it's probably more correct than Putin.
Yeah, have signaled support for international inspectors to visit the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is correctly spelled with a ZHZH right in the middle of it. Yep. This comes from both nations. This comes after both nations claimed that the other one attacked it. And by the way, this meeting was demanded by President Putin of Russia. And honestly, based on the things that I've seen, it looks to me like the Russians, Putin wants this meeting to take place because it's going to be a place where he can do propaganda. Because the stuff that I've heard about this is just kind of, I don't believe it. So. Well,
we're not going to know what's really going on over there.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, I haven't any idea what's going on over there. Everything I read is slightly different.
Well, there's a lot of propaganda from both sides, I can tell you that.
Sure.
There is a lot of propaganda that I think is true coming from Ukraine, and not much that is true I see coming from Russia, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not in a position to say.
Well, the Russians have goofed. They put in troops there. The troops were all getting sick.
The troops, I feel so sorry for these Russian troops. Of course, they're acting badly, so that limits.
That's under orders, though.
Well, yeah. But, it's like this whole war has been extremely badly executed. It was extremely badly thought out, extremely badly executed, and it has displayed something that I think nobody really expected, which was that Russia really has a weak military, and it is not at all well led. And it is not made up of soldiers who know what they're doing.
And I don't think Putin knows what he's doing.
No, and I think Putin is a bully, and the only thing that he knows about getting people to do things is to bully them, and that's what he's trying to do. And unfortunately for him, but fortunately for the rest of the world, there are people who are willing to stand up to him. So, yeah.
Well, let's move along here.
We've
got a nice picture coming up of a cholla cactus garden.
Okay, that's what we've got. I'm going to put that picture up so people can see it. And we have an article from CNN.
Amazing.
Why don't you tell us what the title says?
Would you rip up your lawn for $6 a square foot? Welcome to drought-stricken California.
Yeah, the mega drought affecting the American West has been record-breaking with no tangible relief in sight.
That's scary.
It's forcing cities to crack down on lawn watering. Well, that's amazing. And some are paying residents to replace their lawns with plants that can live in a drought. And I want to point out that...
We've talked about this already.
Yeah, that cactus garden, if you replaced a lawn with these things, you could have something that's beautiful.
Yes, you could.
And,
yeah.
It's just a matter of, well, you're not going to play baseball in that.
It's aesthetics. I mean,
yeah.
We've grown up with this idea that you got to have a good lawn.
And actually the lawn is not a good idea in the East either. The idea of the lawn comes from the British upper class having parks, that they called them, and the parks would have lawns, which were very carefully cut to a certain length by their sheep. But, they got in there where people were going to be walking around. They would cut them down with sickle or scythe. Have you ever used a scythe, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
I have too. And I think most people these days probably, I would bet that the majority of Americans don't even know what a scythe is. Well, unless you say to them that's what the spirit of death carries, you know. But yeah. Anyway, should we go on?
Can't dance.
Yes. Okay, we've got a picture of a river in a flash flood state.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yep. And I have no idea where that river is. So, okay, what do you got for this is actually a newscast. I mean, a weather forecast. Today's forecast from Tucson, Arizona.
Yep.
What do you got for a title? I just read the title.
Would you believe you just read today's forecast for Tucson, Arizona?
Sorry about that. I was reading the name on the link, which happened to be the same as the title.
It's the same link.
Now it's rain and floods for parts of Arizona with nearly 4 inches of rain and a lot of flooding.
That's a lot of rain.
Yeah. Especially when
1 inch of rain is a lot of rain.
In Arizona, yeah, but this is on top of a ground that is not going to absorb that very fast because they're in a state of exceptional drought. The flash flood watch will continue through Saturday night at 11 p.m. Temperatures will be about 5 to 8 degrees below normal, which is a big drop because they were above normal because of the recent storms and increased cloud cover. So this is the monsoon getting them. And that happens.
Strange things are happening.
Well, they have the monsoons every year, or at least they hope they do. But this is a bad monsoon in the middle of a bad drought. You have more on that?
Great. No, do I have more about it? We could spend a whole show talking about it.
Yeah. Monday, August 22nd, and we have an item here from DW.
Whatever that means.
It's Deutsche Welle, which means German.
Oh, yeah, of course, right.
Yeah, there you go.
Dutch
German
radio.
World.
Dutch World.
I think it's German World. Deutsch means German.
Yeah, it doesn't mean Dutch, it means German.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
The idea that we call Holland, the people who live in Holland, Dutch, goes back to a time whenever that was. This is the Isar nuclear plant. Let me put it up so people can see it. There you go. So what do you got for a title for this?
Germany rules out delay to nuclear phase out.
Yeah, German Economic Minister Robert Habeck said that allowing the last 3 nuclear power stations in Germany to remain operational would be of little help in solving the country's energy crisis. He said, however, that he was open to extending the lifespan of one nuclear power plant in Bavaria, and that one, by the way, is the one in the picture there, the Isar nuclear plant. And
Interesting. That's strange.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of talk about keeping these nuclear plants open, but the companies that own them say it isn't possible. And a lot of that, and we've
they've started to shut them down, and they can't backtrack on it.
No.
It's very expensive to shut them down. Takes them a long time.
Yep.
And once they get started, they really can't stop the process.
Yes. They have to have, in order to keep them going, they have to have fuel for a refueling. And that it usually has to be ordered well over a year in advance. Yep. And a lot of their fuel, by the way, for their nuclear power plants has come from Russia. So does that help? So our next item is from Clean Technica.
We got a nice picture of a car.
Yeah, a Hyundai Kona. And there it is.
Well, the article says, and I quote, Sky News. Sky News, by the way, is a company.
Yes.
No No one in Australia wants electric cars. That's kind of a joke, really.
It is. The guy who wrote this had quite a lot of fun with it. While Australia holds a summit to discuss car emissions standards, Sky News, by the way, Sky News is owned by Rupert Murdoch, the same guy.
Oh, is it? It's a television news channel.
Yeah, and it's the same as...
It's in Britain, it's in Australia, it's in a few other places.
Yeah, and his organization is also Fox News and a few other things. Yep. Presenters say that no one wants electric cars. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens are fighting over what is available. Excuse me. Hyundai sold out.
The guy that wrote the article says it sounds like they have been stuck in a garage with the internal combustion engines running.
Hyundai sold out a delivery of 100 EVs in minutes, and other companies are increasing imports dramatically.
But nobody wants them.
Well, that's what Sky News wants to tell you. So.
Eat the lasting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Let's move on. We got an interesting map here coming up.
Yeah, and this map, I want to point out, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that it's the state of Arkansas, and there's a rectangular box, and the
lower left, the southwest quarter.
Yep.
Of Arkansas.
So that gives you an idea of where this...
Well, it looks like the southwest corner of Arkansas. It's got some pretty good resources for the future.
Right, and this green area is the area that where Galvanic can
That's
get
just one company.
That's just one company. The other companies are represented on there, but it doesn't say who they are. It does in the article.
Well, it does, but they're in very small print in the upper left corner.
Ah, yes, you're right. It does. I knew it was there somewhere. This is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Want lithium from the USA? Galvanic Energy may have enough for 50 million EVs. Now, this is a radical departure.
Yeah, Galvanic Energy said a third-party resource report, quote, validated Galvanic Energy's Smackover Formation prospect as one of the largest lithium brine resources in North America, with sufficient lithium to produce enough batteries for 50 million electric vehicles. And, I want to point out, this isn't the big resource in North America. It's one of the big resources. There is a bigger resource in Southern California. So,
lithium?
Yeah.
Wow.
What is that area called? It's an area where they have something like 15 geothermal power plants, and
it's all around a lake.
That's right. And these,
I can't think of the name of the lake.
The geothermal power plants, a lot of geothermal power plants tap into water that is really loaded with lithium.
It's really hot. It's loaded with lithium.
That's right.
The lithium away.
Yeah. So what they do is they take the heat and then pump the water back underground.
Back underground.
Now what they'll do is they'll take the heat, extract the lithium, and pump it back underground.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah. Okay. Should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we should. I think we got a very interesting picture here. This picture itself is a lesson.
Yeah, it is. All by itself. This is agrivoltaics. It's from Clean Technica. What do you have for a...
Well, I'll read it and then I'll just mention something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Agrivoltaics is growing plants, power, and partnerships.
Right.
And agrivoltaics makes a lot of sense. The solar panels take up a lot of real estate.
Yes.
And there's a lot you can grow under them that actually grows better under the panels.
Absolutely.
Like tomatoes and potatoes. You're not going to grow corn, but
yeah.
Low-lying plants seem to grow better under the panels because they're protected from direct sunlight
and from drying winds. Let me read the synopsis. Both solar developers and those in the local community who care for the land whether it is as farmland, rangeland, or native habitats, can benefit from agrivoltaics. And when all sides understand how they can benefit each other, low impact...
Yeah, because that's it.
Yeah, low impact solar development becomes a lot easier.
Well, I think agrivoltaics is the wave of the future.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it is.
It just makes too much sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's kind of counterintuitive, you know, to think that the plants would grow under solar panels well. There's another thing about this, too, that I want to mention. I've run into a thing many times about the toxic materials that come off of solar panels. And as far as I can tell, almost all, and I'm saying almost all because there might be some of that that's true, but almost all of that is false. It's a fabrication which is made to scare people out of putting in solar panels. But that's, you know,
solar panels are encapsulated in glass.
The crystalline ones are. The thin film panels are not, and they do occasionally have toxic materials in them. And I don't know this for a fact, I think that they should not be used in this way. But, you know, the types of panels that we have in Vermont, and really all the huge amounts of the rest of the United States, I looked into one brand of solar panels. I spent a lot of time finding out what was in it, and nothing in there was toxic.
That's interesting.
At least not in the, I mean, if you think about it, if you were to swallow a large amount of aluminum foil, that would be toxic. But is aluminum foil toxic? You know?
Well, if you eat it, it is.
If you swallowed a large amount of it, it would not be good for you. I don't think, but...
I don't think, yeah.
Okay. Next, we have a picture of the Sea Green wind farm, and that is an actual picture of the Sea Green wind farm. And this comes from
interesting, yeah.
Comes from BBC.
Scotland's biggest offshore wind farm to generate its first power, just about to come online.
Scotland's biggest offshore wind farm has begun generating power. Sea Green, which is about 17 miles off the Angus coast in the North Sea, which means you're not going to be seeing these turbines from land.
Well, the Angus coast is the southeast of Scotland.
Has been in development for over a decade. And by the way, development means this starts from the time you start drawing pictures of where this is going to be on a map. When fully operational, its 114 turbines will generate 1.1 gigawatts of power.
Gigawatts, you mean?
That's what I mean. I knew you were going to correct me. And what they mean by
it's a lot of power.
It's a lot of power. And what they mean when they say it's starting to generate power is they've got the first turbines that have started turning connected, so they're actually producing electricity. It's going to take a little time to get 114 turbines up, but I don't know. I think it might be that they're going to be finished with this by the end of the year. These installations go up very fast.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, mostly they're prefabricated, you know, so it's just a matter of towing them out to sea and putting them on platforms.
Yep. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we got a nice picture of a map here.
Yeah, and you know, I spent some time studying this map to figure out what was on it.
Well, it's a map of Dallas.
It's a map that shows Dallas right in the middle, but it's a big map. It goes almost all the way, or possibly all the way to Louisiana. And
absolutely.
Going down, it goes to Waco, which is also called Wacko by some people. And it goes to Abilene to the west. And I want to point out one thing about this map. If you look right at the middle where Dallas is, and then you look just a little bit to the right of that, you'll see a couple of areas that are actually white. And those areas were forecast to get 10 to 12 inches of rain during a period of 12 hours.
Wow, that's a lot. rain.
That's a lot of rain. And this was an area that was in the middle of an exceptional drought. I mean, they were dry as a bone. And they had horrible floods as a result. This is from CNN.
Well, the article says that parts of Dallas got an entire summer's worth of rain between Sunday afternoon and Monday afternoon.
Yeah. Parts of Dallas got, just what you said. That was the National Weather Service that said that. The rain was come to an area in a state of exceptional drought. And it's an example. This is the point where this is the first time I came across this that I remember, but it's a term I'm not going to forget. It is an example of climate whiplash.
Yep.
And I think other examples of climate whiplash might be going from extreme cold to extreme heat, or vice versa. You would not go from have climate whiplash starting with a flood and going into a drought, because droughts take time to develop. But there are things that can happen that are where you say, wait a minute, this isn't what happened an hour ago.
Well, we're not supposed to think that the climate is changing, and we're causing it.
Yeah. Well,
Not supposed to think that.
Not supposed to think at all is what I think is going on. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, August 24th, unless you've got more material on that. Do you?
No, Wednesday's coming up. We got a nice picture of the United Nations building.
That's right.
And this I recognize as being the UN. The one we had last week, I didn't recognize at all.
Yeah, the one we had last week, I don't know where that came from. I know that it was supposed to be a United Nations building, but this is from WION, which I believe is a television station.
Sounds like a radio station or television
yeah.
station. Yeah.
What do you have for title?
IAEA, which is the International, what is it? What is the IAEA?
Atomic Energy Agency. The IAEA is actually part of the United Nations.
Right. And it may visit Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Well, we've already spoken about
Yes. If access negotiations are successful, the UN nuclear watchdog will travel to the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power facility within days, it was announced in a statement. The demilitarization of the area has been demanded by the United Nations. Now, part of the problem with this is they're trying to negotiate, and you've got the Ukrainian delegation and the Russian delegation in the same room, and they're basically spending the time that they're supposed to be negotiating, accusing each other of horrible things. And given the fact that that Vladimir Putin seems to be saying a lot of things that are not true, I've got my opinions about who is telling the truth. But who am I?
What the heck?
What the heck?
It's hard to know what's really going on over there.
I spend a fair amount of time looking at what's going on, and I've come to the conclusion that nobody really knows what's going on. But I've always been interested in military history my whole life. And so I've read many books on the subject. I read, for example, Samuel Eliot Morison, who was an admiral, wrote a history of the United States Navy operations in 7 volumes. I've read all of that.
Oh, wow.
Pershing wrote a 2-volume memoir, which is pretty dense. I've read all of that. I've always been interested in military stuff. And this particular war is being fought by one side in a way that I would have to say is just incredibly ill-informed. And the reason, I think, is because the Russians are operating as terrorists, and terrorism is a really bad strategy. It will not work in a grand scale. And the result of that is they have been defeated in the north. They were driven out of the northern Ukraine. They can say what they want about that, but And if you look at the damage that's been done, it's been to Russian military on the one side, and on the other side, Ukrainian civilians. The Russians have been shooting at apartment buildings and hospitals, and the Ukrainians are shooting at tanks and supply vehicles.
Interesting, huh?
And this is an incredibly bad mismatch. But on top of everything else, the Russian soldiers are very badly trained. Their general staff is apparently very badly trained.
And the Russian soldiers are all getting sick.
And they have these tanks that blow up easily. So you see these pictures of missiles being shot at them, and the missiles don't hit from the side the way they did during the Second World War. They go way up in the air and then they come straight down, and they blow up just above the tank, which means that the hatches have to be light enough that people can open them, so they're relatively thin. The blast goes into the tank and sets off all the ammunition that's in there, because the Russian tanks all have ammunition exposed in the compartment where the men are. That ammunition blows up, and over again you see pictures of tank turrets going up 100 yards in the air. This is not good. It's really badly done. Okay.
Well, let's move along here. We got a nice picture of a road.
That is a river in southern.
It's not a road, it's a river.
It's a river in southern France. It's a river about the size of the Whetstone.
And by the way, it's spelled Huveaune, and that's pronounced Yvonne.
Is it?
In French.
Okay.
And it's in Marseille.
Well, I knew that it was in southwestern France. Anyway, this is from the BBC. What do you have for a title?
Europe's drought is the worst in 500 years.
Yeah. 2/3 of, and I want you to bear in mind, we were just talking about floods in central southern Europe, in Italy and places like that. 2/3
in the midst of a drought.
Yeah. 2/3 of Europe is under some sort of drought warning. It's likely the worst of such event in 500 years. The latest report from the Global Drought Observatory says 47% of the continent is in warning conditions, meaning the soil is dried up. Another 17% is on alert, meaning the vegetation is stressed. Now, I want to point out here, this is not just happening in Europe. It's happening in the United States, and it's happening in China. So basically every place is in terrible shape.
It's a worldwide event, worldwide phenomenon.
Yes, it's a worldwide phenomenon. That is correct. So hopefully well, I'll tell you, I don't think any of the fish survived.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Well, it's funny what things can survive, though.
Well, some of these fish burrow into the mud.
Yeah, and in order to get real fish, this little river is going to have them coming upstream from someplace, or out of lakes that are someplace. But nature is amazing, the way that it repopulates things. I studied the life of fairy shrimp at one time. They live in vernal ponds, which means that
they only occur in the spring.
The ponds are only there in the spring. So how do the fairy shrimp survive the rest of the year? Well, the answer is they don't. They wake up, they hatch rather early when the vernal pond gets water. They live really, really short, fast lives. They lay their eggs and fertilize them, and then they die, and the pond dries up. And interestingly, the eggs are so small that they can be picked up as dust and carried from one place to another.
I'll be darned.
Isn't that amazing? So our last piece is from Clean Technica.
And we got a picture of a Mercedes EQS.
That's what we have. Let me put it up. And what do you have for a title?
Policies matter. Volkswagen, Mercedes, and Hyundai react to the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah. You can bet major corporations like Volkswagen, Mercedes, and Hyundai have read the Inflation Reduction Act, even if the people in Congress haven't. And they know that if they jump through the right hoops, their customers will be able to qualify for a $7,500 tax credit on their EVs. And the point of this is they're building plants in the United States and in Canada, and they are making parts for these cars in the United States. They're assembling cars in the United States because the Inflation Reduction Act subsidizes cars that are mostly made in the U.S.
It's interesting. Mostly union made, too.
Yes, that's right. I had forgotten that, but you're correct, Tom. And then...
That's a good thing, I think.
Well, I think, yes, okay. I was always put off by unions because I've been pretty conservative, but
well, they can get overpowering and certainly have in the past.
Yes,
but by and large, I think unions have probably done more good than bad.
I would agree with that. I can remember some strikes when I was a kid that were really not all that good for the union members. But people do things that aren't really all that good for them from time to time.
What was that Irishman's name with the Irish brogue that led to strikes a lot? Mike Quill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think...
He was all over the news, and he spoke with an Irish brogue.
Okay. I think we have...
Trent Sparks Workers Union.
Okay. When was that?
I was a kid.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're at the end of the show, and we're going to suggest to everybody that they have a memorably superb week. I will put that up so that you can see it and have it proven to you that that's what we're actually telling people. So,
and would you believe it or not, I am actually waving.
Yeah, and I am too. You all come back next time, you hear?
Right.
Did I get it right?
Absolutely. Not quite.
Okay, well, I keep trying.